Chapter 2, Test Review, Problem 1. Given this equation, solve for W. So we want to get W by itself. So what's the first thing we have to do? We have to get rid of the 2L. So how can I get rid of 2L? I subtract it from the other side. So now I'm left with, what am I left with? P minus 2L is equal to, yes, XW. And then what do I have to do? Divide by X. X is on the right hand side cancel. So I have W is equal to P minus 2L over X. Now, number 2 says to solve for R, but R is on the bottom. So I need to get rid of it off the bottom. So what can I do? What can I multiply both sides by? R. So I'm going to multiply this side by R and this side by R. So on my left side I get FR is equal to MV squared, because these two R's canceled. And now I'm solving for R, so I have to divide by F. So R is equal to MV squared over F. Number 3 wants you to solve for X, but the problem is X is in both terms. So what must we do? We must factor. So we have to go A equals, and I'm pulling out an X. So X times what will give me X? Right, 1. Plus X times what gives me X, Y, Z? Y, Z. Solving for X, so I want to get rid of this. So I'm going to divide by 1 plus YZ. So that means that X equals, because X is by itself now, A over 1 plus YZ. Alright, number 4. Solve each of the inequalities and then graph. So I want to get n by itself, so I have to add 6 to both sides. So what do we have? If we have our negative 14 plus 6, what do we have? Right, negative 8. Now, right here, if this was negative 8, is this opened or closed? Closed because of the equal to. So it's closed. And which way do we shade? Yes, to the left, the way this is pointed. As long as your variable is on the left-hand side, you can shade the way it's pointing. Right. Here, number 5. We're solving it out, so what do I have to do? I have to divide by a negative 3. When I divide by a negative 3, I have X. I divided by a negative, so what do I have to do? Flip that sign. And now I have 3 divided by a negative 3, which gives me a negative 1. At negative 1, again, it's closed because of this. And which way am I shading? Yep, again to the left. Number 6, we want to get n by itself. So what is this 4 doing to n? It's dividing, so the opposite is multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. That gets rid of it, so I have n is less than 3 times 4, which is 12. So I'm going to put a 12 down here. It's open this time because it's not equal to, so it's open. And again, it's shading to the left. Alright, so now we're solving for n. So when we're solving for n, we're trying to get rid of everything. So the first thing I have to get rid of is this negative 4 out here. So this is multiplying, so that means I'm going to divide. So I'm going to divide by a negative 4, leaving me with 3 plus n, because that is gone. Divide by a negative, so I have to flip that sign. And then we have negative 32 divided by a negative 4 gives me 8. Last step, subtract the 3. So n is going to be less than or equal to 5. So is it opened or closed at 5? It's closed is right, because it's this. So we're going to shade that in. We're shading to the left, and we're going that way. Alright, now on number 8, our x's are apart, and they're on the same side, so that means we have to combine like terms. So we simply add those two, so 6x and 2x is 8x, plus 2 is less than 22. Then what do you gotta do? Subtract the 2. So we have 8x is less than 20. And then you have 20 divided by 8. So x is less than 2.5. So is it open or closed at 2.5? It is open, and again, we're shading to that left. Alrighty. Now we have some stuff happening on the right hand side and on the left, so we have to clean this up. So the first thing that we're going to have to do, because there's stuff on both sides, we're going to have to distribute this 5. So I have 26 plus x is greater than or equal to, and then we're going to distribute this 5 right there. So I have negative 30, and then 5 and 3 is 15. On 7, we could have done the same thing and it would have given us the same answer. But that's just another way of doing it. So you could distribute on this one. So anyways, on this one, we have 15 x's here and 1 there. So I'm going to I'll subtract the x here. So I have 26 is greater than or equal to a negative 30 plus 14x. So I want to get rid of this negative 30, so I have to add 30 to both sides. So what do I have on the left hand side? Yes, 56 is greater or equal to 14x. and then I'm going to divide by 14. So I have 56 divided by my 14 is 4. So 4 is less than or equal to x. Now, because this is on the right hand side, we either have to remember to shade opposite or flip it around. So it's going to be x, and see how it's pointing to the x, so you want to make sure it's still the same, less than or equal to 4. So at 4, I guess I'll make this my 4 right there. It is closed, and it's shading this way. Alright. 10. If you have $7,000 to invest, part of the 4% interest and part for 7% interest, what is the most you can invest at 4% interest in order to earn at least $380? So what we have is we have 4% that we are going to be investing in, and our 7%. And if we say that we are going to invest X amount in our 4%, and we're only investing 7,000, so 7%, we have to go 7,000 minus our X. So now it says how we want to make at least 380. So if we're doing X amount here, how much interest did we earn? How do you put 4% into decimal? Yes, 0.04x plus, we have here, we're going to do 7%, so that's going to be 0.07 times my 7,000 minus x. And I want this to be at least, so I want this to be greater than or equal to 380. So I have 0.04x plus, I'm going to distribute, so I have 7,000 times my 0.07 is 490 minus the 0.07 x is greater than or equal to 380. Combine like terms. So I have 0.04 minus 0.07 x is going to be a negative 0.03x, and then I'm going to subtract my 490 from both sides, so is less than or equal to, so minus 490 from 380 is a negative 110. Then I have to divide by divide by my negative 0.03. So I'm going to divide both sides by that. So I have negative 10 or 110 divided by my negative 0.03. 3. So it says that x has to be greater than or equal to 3666.67. So 3666.67. I'm going to get a piece of scrap paper so I can, if I need more room, just a sec. Sorry about that, I should have done that for problem 10. Alright, 11. It says that your parents are gone for the night and they left you $20 for dinner and to rent a movie. After spending $7.50 on the dinner, how many movies can you rent at $2.99 each? So we have $20, and then we spent, and then we have, this is our budget, so we need, what we spend is $7.50 plus our $2.99 for every movie, and this has to be less than or equal to our 20. Alright, so we are going to, and we better label that X is the movies, be the number of movies. So now we want to subtract our $7.50. So we have 20 minus the $7.50. So it's $12.50 left. And that is greater than or equal to our 2.99x. And then we would divide by 2.99. So we have $12.50 divided by 2.99. So we have 4.18 is greater than or equal to x. So remember, this is pointing to here, so that means that x is less than or equal to 4.18, telling us that we can rent 4 movies or less, or no more than 4 movies. Alright. In your history class, there will be 4 tests. You score 90, 87, 95 for the first 3 tests. You must earn a total of 360 to get an A. What do you have to get on the last test? So we have 90 plus my 87 plus 95 plus x, and x, remember, is your 4th test. And this has to be greater than or equal to 360. Because it can be more, it can be equal or more. So now we solve it out. So we have 90 plus 87 plus 95. So I have 272 plus x is greater than or equal to 360. And then what do we have to do? Yep, subtract it. So I'm going to subtract 272 from both sides. So x is going to be greater than or equal to 360 minus 272, which is 80. So that means that they have to get an 88% or better. Alright, solve each compound inequality and graph the solution. So we have here, you always look in the middle and see how do I get x by itself. So that means I have 2. What's my first step? Add 5 to everything. So I'm going to add 5 here, add 5 there, and add 5 over here. So now I have negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5 is less than or equal to 3x, which is less than or equal to 4. Then I have to divide by 3. So I have negative 5 divided by 3 is a negative 1.67 is less than or equal to x, because that's gone, which is less than or equal to 4 divided by 3, which is 1.3 repeating. So we have our x is between those, so we have here's negative 1.67 and they're closed, and here is 1.3 and it's shaded between them. Alright, 14. What you have to do on 14, since no matter how you subtract the a's, there's always going to be an a in the locations, so you break it up into 2 different problems. So you have 3a minus 1 is less than or equal to a plus 2, and a plus 2 is greater than or equal to 4a plus 4. Alright, so now you solve them out. So here we're going to subtract the a. So I have 2a minus 1 is less than or equal to my 2. Add 1 to both sides. So I have 2a is less than or equal to 3, and then divide by 2. So a is less than or equal to 1.5. Over here, I'm going to subtract my 4a. So I get a negative 3a plus 2 is less than or equal to 4. Subtract my 2. Negative 3a is less than or equal to a negative 2. Subtracting 2. So is just 2. And then I'm going to divide by a negative 3. A is going to, and you gotta flip the sign, so a is greater than or equal to a negative 2/3. So it says that it is less than 1.5 and greater than a negative 2/3. So it's in between here. Alright. Alright, back side. Now we have ORs and we're solving it. So we just solve it like normal. So what would I have to do? subtract 6. So x is less than negative 8, or subtracting 6 on this side, x is greater than a negative 4. So I have negative 8. Are they open or closed? Open. I'm going to shade this way. Or x is greater than a negative 4. So if this is negative 8, 5, 4, open, going this way. Here, remember, we always think of them as two problems. So we have one problem there and another problem there on 16. So the first thing we want to do is get x's on both sides. So I'm going to, since I might as well take this over to my left side just because I always have to have my variable at the end. So I'm going to take it actually over here. So I'm going to subtract 8x. So I'm going to have a negative 7x plus 18 is greater than or equal to 4. Then I'm going to subtract 18. So negative 7x is greater than or equal to your 4 minus 18, which is a negative 14. And then simply divide by a negative 7. So that means x, what do we have to do? Flip that sign, is less than or equal to 2. Over here, we have x's are on both sides. So we're going to subtract 15 from both sides, 15x. And we're going to get a negative 15 is less than or equal to 5. So the question is negative 15 less than or equal to 5? And the answer is yes, all the time. So that means that your solution is all real numbers. So just to show you, give me a number. So let's say 0. So we're going to throw in 0. 0 minus 15, so we have negative 15, is less than or equal to 0 and 5. So negative 15 is less than 5, yep. So let's try do another number just to make sure that you agree with it. So we'll do 1. So we'll go 15 times 1 minus 15 is less than or equal to 15 times 1 plus 5. So that means we have 15 minus 15 gives me a 0 is less than or equal to, and here we have 15 plus 5, which gives me 20, which is also true. So no matter what number you pick, it's going to be true. And since it's OR, that means that this one will, when you shade it, it'll be everything because it's all real. Because remember, OR means that you shade this and this. Alright, so let's go to number 17. Alright, 17. We want to go and subtract 1. So n is less than or equal to a negative 4. On the side, we have negative 4n is less than negative 8. So what do we have to do? Divide by negative 4. So n is going to be. Sorry, if I don't touch the computer, it goes black on you. N is less than, we divided by a negative, so sorry, greater than or equal to, or greater than, and 2. Sorry, my mind started wandering. Alright, so we have -4, and it's closed, and it's shaded to my left. And then at 2, we have, let's see if I can do it. So we got -4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2 is open, and that's shaded to the right. Now, technically, you could be counting by anything, so you wouldn't have to count it out per se by ones. Alright, so now we have the word and, so that means what they have in common once we graph it. But the first step will be getting A's on the same side. So I'm going to get mine to the left again. So -11A on both sides. So we have 4 minus 11 is your -7A plus 8 is greater than 15. What's the next step? Minus 8. So I have -7A is greater than your 7. And then last step is divide by that -7. When we divide by a negative, we have to flip that sign. So we have A is less than -1. And doing the same thing here, we are going to add 3A to both sides. So I have 13 minus my 14A plus 3 gives me 11A is less than or equal to 13. What's your next step? Subtract 13 from both sides. So a -11A is less than or equal to 0. Divide by -11. So we have A, and it's dividing by a negative, so we have to flip that sign. So A is greater than or equal to 0. So we have to find out what do they have in common. So we have, if this is my -1, and this is, I'm going to count by 0.5, so say this is my -1 and this is my 0. -1 goes this way, it's open, goes that way. And then this one says at 0, it's closed, and it goes this way. And remember, and means what they have in common. So what do they have in common? Nothing. So the answer is no solution. If they would have had something in common, then you would have shaded it here, but they don't have anything in common. Alright. Find the distance between these numbers. So remember, all you have to do is subtract them and take the absolute value. So we have 13 minus a -21, absolute value. So you take 13 minus a -21 gives you 34. Absolute value of 34 is 34. If you haven't tried these ones on your own yet, you can stop the video and then come back and watch the rest. But I want you to try these ones. Alright, so what was our first step? Yes, subtract the two numbers. So you have -4 minus 32. So you have -4 minus 32 gives me and then you have to take the absolute value, so then it gives you a negative 36 absolute value. Remember, absolute value means positive of that number, so that's 36. So 17 minus 65 absolute value. So we have 17 minus 65 gives me a negative 48. Absolute value of that is 48. Alright, you tell me how to do this one. Yep, you're right. Negative 45 minus a negative 103 absolute value. So we have negative 45, negative, negative make a positive, or you can go minus a negative. So you have negative 45 plus 103 gives you 58. Absolute value of that is 58. Alright, simplify each absolute value expression. So remember, when you have a number, it's like saying the absolute value of negative 15 times the absolute value of x. So the absolute value of negative 15 is 15, and we don't know what x is, so it has to stay in. So it's going to be the absolute value of x. When you have, like on 24, you have an odd amount, you want to pull out as many evens as you can. So you're going to pull out, how many evens can you pull out? 8. And you are left with 1. Absolute value of 3 is 3. X, there's only 1, so that has to stay inside. And then y to the 4th is all even, so you have y to the 4th is going to come out with the absolute value of x. Alright, 26. 26, we have the absolute value of this equals 11. So that means, what numbers, if this was just x, what absolute value of x equals 11, what number could that have been? That could have been 11 or negative 11. So that means that x plus 8 is equal to 11, or x plus 8 is equal to a negative 11. So then I subtract my 8, so I have x is equal to 11 minus 8 is 3. Or, on this one, negative 11 minus 8 is 19. So x is equal to a negative 19. So since it's equal, it means that there's two dots. So there's one dot at negative 19, and there's one dot at 3. If this here was just your x, absolute value x is greater than or equal to 18, what could have this been on your number line? If you think about it, if this is my 0, this is 18 out there, and this is negative 18, what could go into here to make this true? Any number above 18, 18 and over would make it, right? So 18 and over would make that true. And anything less than negative 18 would make that true. So, just so you guys can, I'm going to cover this up actually, so that doesn't, and this is 27. So we have here what we are going to do is we would have absolute value is by itself, you have negative 3x is greater than or equal to 18, or negative 3x is less than or equal to a negative 18. Solving it out, we have here divide by a negative 3. So you have x is less than or equal to your 18 divided by 3 gives you a negative 6. Over here, because we have divided by a negative 3, so you have x is greater than or equal to your 6. So at negative 6 here is closed, and it's shaded this way. And then at 6, it's also closed, and it's shaded this way, because it's OR. Alright, 28. You want to get the absolute value by itself. So what I'm going to do is I have to get rid of the negative 7 and that 6 before I can do anything else. So I'm going to go and add 7 to both sides. So I have 6 absolute value of x is equal to 20. And then I would simply divide by 6. So the absolute value of x is equal to 20 divided by 6, which is 3.3 repeating. So that means that x equals 3.3, or x equals a negative 3.3. So there's two dots, one at negative 3.3 repeating and one at 3.3 repeating. Alright. Alright, so now this is by itself, so that means that the first step is always make sure absolute value sign is by itself, and it is. So now we can do it. So it says it's 5x minus 11 is less than 30, and it's always the same thing. So 5x minus, I don't know why I said 11, 10, sorry. And now we always flip the sign, and it's the negative, so negative 30. Now you have to know if it's and or. If you're not understanding this, one thing you can think about is this is pointing to like the beginning of the alphabet, and the beginning of the alphabet is and, an A for and. Or you can think of the numbers. They have to be less than 30, so that means it's going towards the 0, and so anything in the middle is going to be your and. So I add 10 to both sides, so I have 5x is less than 40. Divide by 5. So we have, what do we got? So you have x is less than 8. And over here you have adding 10 to both sides. You have 5x is greater than your negative 20. Then what do we gotta do? Divide by 5. So x is greater than a negative 4. So that means that if this is negative 4 and this is 8, They're both open, and it's in between them because it says that it's less than 8 and greater than that. So it's here. So those numbers would work in here. Alright, number 30. Number 30. Remember, what do we have to do first? We always have to get the absolute value by itself. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So I have 7 absolute value of 2x is greater than 56. Divide by 7. So the absolute value of 2x is what? Greater than 8. Now that I have the absolute value by itself, we can do the two things. So it's 2x is greater than 8, or 2x is less than negative 8. Divide by 2. X is greater than 4. Divide by 2. X is less than negative 4. So we have here negative 4, open its circle, and it's that way, and then 4, open, and it's that way. And the last one, 31. We have to get the absolute value by itself, so I have to go negative 2x absolute value, and I have to add 5 to both sides, so is less than or equal to 10. Now that the absolute value is by itself, I can say negative 2x is less than or equal to 10, and negative 2x is greater than or equal to a negative 10. I'm going to divide by negative 2. So x is going to be less than or equal to a negative 5. And we divide this one by a negative 2. We have to flip the signs. And it's my last problem and I mess up. Okay, so we have to flip the signs, so because we're dividing by a negative. We have x is less than or equal to your 5, and this one we divided by a negative, so we should have flipped that sign. And so we have here our numbers are negative 5 and 5. Now say you're still struggling to decide, is it and or is it or? One thing that you could do is pick a number between them. So like say 0. So we have 0 times this is 0. So 0 minus 5 would be a negative 5 is less than or equal to 5, because we put that 0 in, which is true. And you always shade true. So that means that it's equal to, so those above the 5s are equal. So we're shading between it. If you picked a different number, 1, so 1 times negative 2 is negative 2, absolute value is 2. So we have 2, so you have 2 minus 5 is your negative 3. So negative 3 less than or equal to 5, yes. So every number that you pick in here will be true. So if you're struggling still with the and, pick a number once you got to the numbers, once you solve these out, to figure out which way you're shading. Well, that's a wrap, and hopefully this helped you. Watch it as many times you need to, and with questions, and I will see you next week. Have a great weekend, guys.